Subscribe for Alone Reddit. I knew the moment my hand touched the brass handle that the courtroom door wasn't just heavy. It was resisting me. Like it already knew what waited inside. Maybe it wanted to keep me out. Maybe it wanted to protect me. But I pushed anyway, stepped inside wearing the only suit I owned. The same one I bought 3 years ago when I still believed job interviews decided your future. They were already there. My parents. My brother. Sitting in the front row like royalty at a show they'd bought tickets for. All dressed in clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. My mother whispered something into my father's ear the second she saw me. He didn't even try to hide the eye roll. That tiny flick upward said everything. Here comes the disappointment. Here comes the problem. Their lawyer sat beside them, expensive tie, expensive watch, the kind of swagger you can only buy with a $500 an hour rate. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. They all thought they'd already won. But they had no idea what I'd brought with me. And before I tell you everything, before I unravel the worst chapter of my life, I want you to think about something. Have you ever been treated like the weakest link in your own family? Hold that thought, because what happened next changed my life forever. The bailiff called for everyone to rise. The judge entered. And as she took her seat, I took a breath that didn't feel like it belonged to me. To understand how I ended up being sued by my own blood. You need to know what came before it. I was never the shining one. That was my brother Mason, charmed, gifted. The golden boy of our perfectly curated family portrait. When he turned 16, he got a brand new convertible. When he needed tuition for private college, it magically appeared. When he wanted to invest in a business idea, my parents wrote him a check without blinking. And me. I bagged groceries on night shifts to pay my way through community college. I studied in basements that smelled like mold and ramen. I lived cheap, slept less, and learned early that survival didn't come from being loved. It came from refusing to quit. There was only one person who ever really saw me. My grandfather. He showed up to my graduation when nobody else bothered. He took me out to lunch, listened to me talk about my dreams, told me stories about his past. And every time we said goodbye, he'd pat my shoulder and say, "You don't shine like your brother. You endure. And endurance outlives everything." He also told me something weird: save everything. Every receipt, every email, every tiny scrap of proof. I thought it was an old man's obsession. I didn't know he was building a shield around me. When he passed, we all gathered for the reading of the will. Mason got the house. My parents inherited his investment accounts. And I received something called the education fund. It sounded like scraps. Until the lawyer said the words 20 years of compound growth. My share totaled $1.2 million. More than the house and investments combined. My mother's face drained of color. My father went stiff. Mason stared at me like I'd stolen oxygen. That was the moment everything snapped. 2 weeks later, they called a family meeting. I arrived to find a man in a gray suit sitting in the living room. A lawyer they'd hired. My mother's smile was warm enough to burn. They slid an agreement toward me. A family management plan. I was supposed to hand over every dollar of my inheritance to them. They would protect it, manage it. Give me a monthly allowance, $2,000 of my own money. My father's voice turned colder than steel. If you refuse, we'll pursue a conservatorship. And trust me, that gets ugly. They gave me 72 hours. I didn't use them. I walked out with the contract in my hand and my dignity barely holding on. Exactly 72 hours later, I answered the door to a process server. The petition accused me of being financially incompetent. Unable to make decisions. Unfit to control my own life. Signed. Notarized. Filed. I lost my job the same week. HR put me on leave because legal instability made me a liability. My best friend told me to just give my family half. You'll still have $600,000, she said. $600,000 as if peace had a price tag that I almost broke. Until I opened the binder. The one Grandpa gave me 5 years earlier. Page 12. Section 7. Subsection a clause. If any beneficiary tried to take another's share through legal action, they forfeited everything. Grandpa predicted them. He left me the key. I called my old study partner, Liam, who just passed the bar. He read the clause and looked up at me with a face so pale it scared me. This is nuclear. If they keep pushing, they lose everything, not you. I sent the warning letter the next morning. They ignored it. Worse, they escalated. They filed an amended petition claiming I manipulated Grandpa. They even forged an amendment to the trust. That's when I found out the truth. Their house was in foreclosure. My brother's business had collapsed, owing hundreds of thousands. Their savings, gone. Their retirement, gone. Their reputation crumbling. They weren't evil, they were drowning. And they expected me to jump in so they could climb on my shoulders. That I didn't. Instead, I filed a counterpetition: fraud, forgery, breach of fiduciary duty, enforcement of the forfeiture clause. I worked through the night, alone, focused. At 11:43 a.m., I clicked submit. And next to my name on the form were 3 letters my family never knew I earned. Isq, I had passed the bar 6 months earlier. Night school, 4 years. No congratulations from anyone, because nobody knew that I saved that reveal for the courtroom. The next morning, when the judge asked whether I had legal representation, I stood and said, "Your Honor, I represent myself." The silence was absolute. Their lawyer turned gray. My brother stopped smiling. My mother blinked like she'd seen a ghost. I presented the forfeiture clause first, then the forged amendment, then the notary's affidavit, then the forensic report proving the signature was digitally traced on paper, not even manufactured in the year they claimed. The judge listened, reading slowly, carefully. Then she looked at my family and said, "Do you have anything to say?" They didn't. The petition was dismissed with prejudice. The forfeiture clause was triggered. They lost the house, the accounts, everything. The assets were redirected to a scholarship program exactly as Grandpa planned. They weren't punished, just reset. I used part of my share to fund the first year of the scholarship myself. 5 students walked across the stage last spring. First generation, working nights, studying on borrowed time. Kids like me. The rest helped me start a tiny law practice. I work with families who go through what I did, people who need someone who understands how betrayal hides behind closed doors. My family and I, we're distant now. Not estranged. Not fighting. Just distant. My mother sent an email once, soft words. No ownership. No truth. I thanked her and moved on. My brother asked to meet. I said maybe someday. Not yet. And every morning when I look at the old photo of Grandpa on my desk, the same picture they once used to turn people against me, I don't think about courtrooms or petitions or the years they treated me like I was disposable. I think about his voice. Endurance outlives everything. He was right. I kept every receipt, every scrap of truth, and in the end, the truth saved me. Now I want to ask you something. Would you have forgiven them completely or protected yourself the way I did? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story made you feel something, subscribe. There's more to come. And remember this: no matter who doubts you, who dismisses you, who tries to rewrite your story, keep your receipts.